Dr. Tony D. Collins is here to encourage, motivate, inspire, guide you into excellence. Your success matters. Your dreams matter. Sign up right now with Shepherd One Coaching and become a better you. Dr. Tony D. Collins is here to encourage, motivate, inspire, guide you into excellence. Your success matters. Your dreams matter. Sign up right now with Shepherd One Coaching and become a better you. Dr. Tony D. Collins is here to encourage, motivate, inspire, guide you into excellence. Your success matters. Your dreams matter. Sign up right now with Shepherd One Coaching and become a better you. Dr. Tony D. Collins is here to encourage, motivate, inspire, guide you into excellence. Your success matters. Your dreams matter. Sign up right now with Shepherd One Coaching and become a better you. Dr. Tony D. Collins is here to encourage, motivate, inspire, guide you into excellence. Your success matters. Your dreams matter. Sign up right now with Shepherd One Coaching and become a better.
Well, good morning, everybody, on this terrific Tuesday morning. I hope you've had a wonderful weekend, and I hope you already started your week off on a high note. Of course, we're going to have a great week here on Morning Mocha this week. I can feel it. I anticipate it, and I hope you're anticipating it as well. Good morning to each and every one of you who have joined us this morning. And let me encourage you to take the time to share this link with someone that you love and care about, and invite them to join us here on Morning Mocha, not just this morning, but throughout the rest of the week, Tuesday through Friday, 8 a.m. on this same place each and every day. I'm excited about being with you once again, and I know there's some great things that's going to be shared on this week. Today, I want to talk to you about being careful while cruising through life. Cruising through life. You know, many of you already know that I'm an avid sports fan. I love watching sports. And one of the reasons why I love sports so much is because of the number of lessons that can be learned from watching great athletes compete. I know some of you might be thinking, what lessons can you learn from watching a sports competition? There are a number of life lessons that you can learn from watching sports competition. For me, at times, it can be mind-blowing. This is one of those examples. It can be mind-blowing to see one team get off to a fast start, jump on the other team, and build what appears to be an insurmountable lead over the other team right from the very start. It seems as though they are shot out of a cannon, and the other team is blindsided. They get hit with something that they didn't expect, and before you know it, the team that jumped off to a fast start has just this great big lead. The team that gets off to that hot start initially makes it look like as though the game is going to be a one-sided contest that may ultimately end up in a blowout. I know many of you have seen that happen a time or two. We've witnessed it happen with our Kansas City Chiefs on last year, at the end of the season, rather, this past season. They jumped off to a great start, and it seemed as though that they were going to just blow the Cincinnati Bengals out. You know, that's not the only example. I've been watching the NBA playoffs, and I've seen this kind of thing happen time after time. One team gets off to a fast start, and, you know, if you're rooting for that team, you get real excited about your team's start. You feel as though, yeah, we got this one. This one is in the bag. But how many times have you heard the phrase, someone used the phrase, they tell you, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. In other words, don't make a conclusion too fast, because, you know, with regards to sports competitions, they'll tell you things like, there's still a lot of game left ahead. There's a lot of game to be played. There's still a great deal of time on the clock, you know. But at the time, in the game where one team seems to be dominating, you'll hear the announcers say things like, this may be a blowout. This team is just cruising along and they're headed for an easy win. You'll hear the announcers make statements like that. And I'm telling you, those who are rooting for the leading team tend to get really, really excited. Their hopes get built up. But here's the potential problem. Here's the potential problem. And this is one of these lessons that can be learned from watching sports competitions. Cruise mode is not always the best mode to be in. As a matter of fact, cruise mode can at times prove to be a dangerous mode to be in. Why? Because a number of things come into play when that person, that team, that player falls into cruise mode. Cruise mode can be an indication of overconfidence. I want you to think about that first and foremost. It can be an indication of overconfidence. It can be an indication of cockiness, if you will. And you know that's a dangerous place to be in. Cruise mode can actually be a state of being too comfortable with the situation. Cruise mode can cause a team or a player to fall into a state, rather, of complacency. And that's when you really have a problem. You can always tell when a team or a player has fallen into a state of complacency, because that's when they start to scale back with regards to asserting themselves. You can watch them, and in just a few moments, that team or particular players, they'll go from being on fire to starting to fizzle out. And the effects of the state of complacency start to show on and through the team or the players, both physically and mentally. They start to relax. They start to act as though, I've got this, we've got this. This is going to be no problem. They start to act as though they have forgotten they still have an opponent on the other side of the court, on the other side of the field, you know, that's still trying to win the game. And the minute they fall into that state of complacency, you can kind of see the confidence of the losing team start to rise. They start to feel like we can take them. Some of them may even feel like we got them right where we want them, because we've lulled them to sleep. That team that appeared to have it all together when the game started now looks like a totally different team with totally different players. And so the question is, what has happened? And I'll tell you what's happened. That enemy called complacency has reared its ugly head. The team or the player that falls into a state of complacency, here's what happens to them. They lose their edge. When they jumped out initially, on fire, ready to go, they had an edge over the other team. They were excited. They were passionate. And that excitement and passion showed through their play. And maybe I should put it like this. They were more excited and more passionate than the other team, and it showed through their play. But again, things start to happen when you fall into that state of complacency. Negative things start to happen once an individual starts to fall into that state of complacency. They lose their focus. That happens often. Sometimes teams or players can pay too much attention to either the roar of a crowd or the silence of a crowd, depending on what venue they're playing in. You know, sometimes teams can get overly hyped when playing in front of their home crowd. Why? Because they're hearing the roars and the chants and the encouragement and all of this, and they feel like, okay, we got it all together. Our fans are behind us. We got everything clicking on all cylinders. They might make a couple of plays that totally wow the crowd, and they're hearing the cheers and everything. But then at some point, they may start to lose focus again as a result of being overconfident or even cocky. They fall into that state of complacency. They have taken certain things for granted. And that's not a good thing. It's never a good thing to take anything for granted, regardless of the occasion, regardless of the situation. Never allow yourself to just take certain things for granted simply because things at the present are flowing a certain way. When teams or players fall into that state of complacency, they've convinced themselves that they don't have to work as hard from start to finish, that they can just cruise along into victory. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes such proves to be the case. On any given day, they may have everything so well together that they might just cruise along to victory from start to finish. But too often have I seen teams or players cruising along, and before you know it, things start to unravel and everything starts to fall apart. One of the reasons why some teams or players remain in the state of complacency throughout the duration of the game is because they have been lulled into believing that they're going to win simply because they've had the lead for most of the game. That's another thing that I've seen happen so many times. Team is leading throughout the entire game, but in those last few minutes, the last few minutes of the game, they find that they're in trouble. Why? Because somewhere over the course of their play, they developed a just hold on mentality, especially when they find themselves getting in trouble. When they start to see that lead is starting to shrink and it may be slipping away, they develop that mentality. If I could just hold on, or else they start looking at the clock, hoping or wishing that the clock would run a bit faster, and that's not going to happen. That is never going to happen. As a matter of fact, it may seem more so that the clock is ticking slower for the team that's in the lead, giving the other team time to get back in the game and even potentially overtake them in that particular game. That's a dangerous place to be in. In the sporting community, among the announcers in particularly, they will declare that the team that has been leading the whole time, that team that jumped off to a hot and fast start, something happens wherein they lost. This is what they say about it. They lost the big mo. They lost the big mo and they refused to acknowledge it. What is the big mo? The big mo is momentum. Wow. They lost their momentum. They've lost that speed at which they were traveling that was going to catapult them into their destiny. They lost that passion, that drive, that urge, that push that they were feeling right from the beginning. Everything was going their way. But then there was a big shift. What was going well for the leading team is now going against the leading team. They lost the momentum. Now, if you hang with me, I'm going to show you how all of this applies to living your life on a daily basis. Let's start here. Complacency, or rather cruising that leads to complacency, works the same way in life as it does on a basketball court, on a football field, on a baseball diamond. It works all the same way. I've discovered that it's just not good to put your life on cruise control. Even when you think or know that you are doing very well, even when the data says that you're producing at the rate that you truly desire to produce, even when things are going that well, it's still not a good thing to put your life on cruise control. Now, cruise control, while it sounds ideal, can make you lazy. Yeah. Cruise control can undermine your alertness. It can cause you to be lulled into a state wherein you're no longer being proactive, but you're only being reactive. I mean, we could use the analogy of using the cruise control on a car. It can be good, but it also can come with complications. It can cause some problems if you don't remain totally engaged with what you are doing. Now, when I'm traveling by vehicle, I often set my cruise control, but not for the sake of being able to relax. I only do so for the sake of making sure that I stay within the speed limit enough to where I'm not pulled over by highway patrol. That's what I use my cruise control for. I use it as a speed regulator, if you will. And because I use it the way I use it as a speed regulator, then I'm less likely to find myself in any kind of trouble. And so that's the only time I use it. But I'm always mindful to remain as alert as I possibly can. Cruise control doesn't allow you to necessarily stay on course. It'll just keep you moving at a certain speed. But then over the course of traveling, while you're traveling and over the course of life, there are times, depending on the situation, that you need to slow down. There are times you need to pick up. There are times that you must change lanes. There are times that you must be able to look backward and forward. The machine is not going to do all the work for you. Now, I know that there are vehicles coming out nowadays where they are autopiloted, if you will, where you can just set the cruise control and everything, and the vehicle does all the work for you. The steering, the speed control, and all of that, slowing the vehicle down, speeding it up whenever necessary. But how many of you are like I am? I wouldn't trust that kind of situation right now for anything in the world. There's no way in the world that I'm going to place my life in the hands of artificial intelligence to make sure or to ensure that my vehicle is going to do what I need it to do every time I need it to do it. Now, before some of you start to make comments and say, well, there are many times that you are in the hands of artificial intelligence and you may not know it. Well, if I don't know it, then I don't have to worry about it. I know that to some degree, airplanes are flown by artificial intelligence. But know this, there are pilots still at the controls of those jets, of those airliners, watching to make sure that everything is going and flowing the way it should go and flow. And it is yet important for the pilot to remain alert. This is what happens sometimes when people are cruising along through life. They put their lives on cruise control and they become lazy. They expect things to just automatically happen instead of being at the controls and making sure that certain things happen. You know, when I was driving professionally for the phone company, we were trained extensively on our driving skills and practices. I mean, we constantly were being trained and retrained. They wanted to make sure that our training was always up to date. I think at least once a year or every other year, whenever it was, they would want us to have a driver's review. They would even have unmarked vehicles out on the road that would follow us in our company vehicles and observe us for a while. And if you were driving in a way that was deemed unsafe or reckless or careless or whatever, they would write you up and you would soon find out about it. I had an occasion, this is not brag, y'all, this is just a factual story. I had an occasion wherein I was being trailed for some time. I didn't know it, unmarked car. I was just doing what I do, driving the way I drive. And when at the end of the day, I pulled into the garage, the company garage, and there were some people waiting there for me. And I was told that they wanted to see me. And when I went to find out what was going on, they were commending me for how I was handling my vehicle. They let me know that they had observed and they were very pleased with how I was handling my vehicle. But during our training, one of the things that we were often reminded of was how important it is to constantly scan the road as far as possible and as wide as necessary. Scan the road, look down the road as far as you can. And as you're looking down the road, as far as you can, constantly scan from one side to the next, to the other, from side to side. Yes, you were concerned what was in your immediate vicinity, in the immediate vicinity of your vehicle, what was traveling around you. But you didn't just get locked in on your immediate vicinity. You paid attention to it consistently, but you didn't just get locked in. We were trained to scan down the road. The purpose of the scanning was to detect as soon as possible anything that would cause you to make any adjustments and or maneuvers necessary to avoid any potential driving mishaps. That's why you scan. And that requires engaging great observation skills. Let me stick a pin right there and say this to you. One of the reasons why some people are met with career tragedies or visions and dreams collapsing is because of the lack of great observation skills. You need to be observant all the time. You need to keep your head on a proverbial swivel all the time, observing everything that's around you. If you're a person in business, you have to observe what's going on in the economy or what's going on with the economy. You need to know how the general public reacts to certain things, what they're desiring at any given time. You have to be very observant. You need to scan out ahead of you. In other words, think not just of your present situation, but think about your future. I believe that everyone, if you desire to be successful with moving forward in life, everyone needs a short range plan and a long range plan. I will go as far as to say you need a short range, mid range, and long range plan. You need to be able to, how do I want to say it? For lack of a better term, you have to be able to predict the future, if you will, by observing what's presently going on and by the information that's being shared to you or that you are acquiring that will give you an indication what could potentially happen in the future. Some of you might be saying, well, I'm not worried about the future. Well, you should be worried about the future. The future can be as immediate as later on today. When we think future, most of the time we're thinking years from now. No, nowadays, I have discovered and I have concluded that it's important to be prepared for what may come later on today, for what may come tomorrow, for what may come next week, next month. You don't always, you can't always, you don't have the luxury of always only thinking in terms of 5 to 10 years ahead. It's good if you can. And sometimes it's necessary for you to, based on what kind of vision that you may have. It may take that long for you to build that kind of vision. But you must also be able to scan short distances, short terms. And sometimes you need to keep your focus somewhat narrow, because if you start to scan too wide, you may lose sight of what's going on in front of you. You may become distracted from what's actually ahead of you. Some things you just need to keep in your peripheral view. Just have enough sight or insight on that thing to help keep you on track, to help keep you moving forward. Let me tell you about something about a great observer. A great observer is always taking mental notes that they can refer to whenever needed. That's what a great observer does. Now, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I feel as though that I'm a great observer. I pay attention to what's going on around me. I observe everything, and I'm one who takes mental notes. Even if I don't verbally comment on something, I'll take mental notes. And I'll file those mental notes somewhere in my memory bank. And when I need those mental notes, I just pull up those mental notes and use them accordingly. See, when you do that, that's what helps you to keep your edge. Yes, it does. It's what helps you to be prepared, to always be prepared to make necessary changes. Man, I'm telling you, that's where flexibility in life is so important. Some of you need not to be so rigid and regimented when it comes to certain movements in life. That's the best way I can put it. Some of you can be so rigid and regimented that you can't make adjustments on the fly. You got to be able to make adjustments on the fly, because you never know what's in the road ahead of you. You never know what challenges you may face, what hiccups may occur when you seem to be just cruising along. What should you be observing? What should you be looking for? Well, let me put it to you like this. Make sure you pay attention to the obvious. Read the signs. Simple as that. Some people would be a lot better off if they would just read the signs. Now, I know this may be a little bit old-fashioned for these days and times, reading signs, because I know nowadays most of us that drive vehicles have navigation systems in the vehicle. The vehicle comes equipped most of the time with the navigation system. But before navigation systems were available, you were forced to, if you were going to get anywhere that you've never been before, you were forced to read the signs. When you read the signs, it helps navigating to be a lot smoother. It makes the journey a lot less complicated when you read the signs. And I want to compare this traveling through life with traveling down a highway. The signs are obvious. There's a speed limit sign that tells you how fast you can travel without getting in trouble with law enforcement. Speed limit, 55, 65, 45, 70, 75, whatever that may be. Read the sign and act accordingly. Read the sign There are times that you're traveling alone, but then a sign will be posted telling you to slow down. Call them speed zones. In the speed zone, you have to reduce your speed. What about this sign? Stop. Sometimes you just need to stop. Why do you need to stop? Because if you don't stop, you might be headed for potential disaster. That happens even in life. Sometimes we get indicators that tell us that you just need to stop. Whichever way you're traveling, you need to stop. Whatever you're doing, you need to stop. Just stop. Obey the sign. It's obvious. You'll get to where you're going if you just pay attention to the signs. Okay, you don't like stop. Fine. But you must do it anyway. But then there's a time when there's an indicator that says it's time to go. Red light, green light. Red light, green light. Stop, go. You stop at the appointed time. You go at the appointed time. Pay attention to the sign. What about this sign? Detour. The path you anticipated is now closed. So you have to make a detour. You have to go around that obstruction, whatever's impeding you from getting from point A to point B. Maybe you can't travel at that straight line anymore, but that doesn't mean that you won't reach your determined destiny. But you may have to take a slight detour. That's an adjustment. It may be a temporary inconvenience, but it's one that is necessary nonetheless. Otherwise, what are you going to do? Just sit there and just look at the sign? Or are you going to be that person that going to be hard-headed and say, well, you know what? I don't want to go that way. I'm going to continue to go the way I want to go. And you may wind up in a ditch somewhere or off the side of a torn out bridge. This is true to life. Sometimes people are reluctant to make adjustments when they truly need to make adjustments. Go another way. Do things a different way. You got to adjust your thinking. Sometimes you get a sign that tells you you don't have to make a detour, but you need to make a slight shift in your position. Why? Because there's a lane closed ahead. Right lane closed ahead. And you get those flashing arrows that's pointing you to the left, telling you need to shift. You need to shift. And when you're traveling down most interstates and they've closed the lane, it's amazing to me sometimes, especially when they're doing work. It can be somewhat irritating. They're working on a certain lane, and they put out those orange cones to start to shift you over into the lane that's going to remain open. And then once they get you over into that lane, you travel for miles, literally for miles, with that one lane closed. Those orange cones lining the highway that's shutting off that one lane for miles. And you're thinking, what are they doing? There's nobody working here. Why is this lane closed? Why don't they open this thing? Well, they're doing it both for your safety and for theirs as well. May not make sense to us, but it makes sense to them. But the ultimate goal is to help you to reach your determined destination safely. Again, it can be inconvenient. It can be irritating. It can be time consuming, but it is necessary. Here's another real important sign that you got to pay attention to. That sign that indicates there's a curve ahead. Sometimes you just have that one sign that with that little curve sign on it. There's a curve ahead. But then there are times that they will place arrows all along the curve pointing in one direction. You'll see one arrow after the other, letting you know that you're still in this curve. Stay in this curve. You're going to be following this curve for a while. Every now and then while going through life, you come up on some curves. Think about it. Some of you might be feeling as though, hey, I'm in a curve right now. The bad thing about the curve is that you can't see what's around the curve. That's when you really have to pay attention to the sign. You really are not sure how the curve is going to bend, to what degree, because some curves are deeper than others. And unfortunately, you absolutely cannot see around the curve. So you have to pay attention to the sign and obey the sign so that you can make it safely through the curve. Apply it to your living. This is another sign. Uneven pavement. Yeah. That uneven pavement thing can be bumpy. It can be off-centered. It can be very uncomfortable. You have to make sure that you keep a hold of the wheel, because if you hit that uneven pavement wrong, you hit it the wrong way, it can cause a disaster. Sometimes life gets real uncomfortable. And that's when you have to really focus in and hone in and pay close attention to what's going on in and around you. What about this sign? I know you've seen this one before. Slippery when wet. Little rain has fallen. A little dew has settled on the ground. And it causes the pavement to become slick. You have to make adjustments in your speed. You have to make adjustments in your braking. You have to make adjustments in your steering, because you have conditions that are not normal, if you will. There's something else that is contributing to the condition of that surface that could pose you some potential danger. See, now, some of you are still looking at this as just as a driving lesson. Well, some of you could use that as well. But if you take these principles and analogies and apply them to life itself, then your traveling through life will become less complicated. How about this one? One way. You really better obey that particular sign. Pay close attention to that, because there's nothing more dangerous than traveling the wrong way on a highway. That's dangerous. That is really, really dangerous. If you choose to travel the wrong way in life, it could literally cost you your life. Road closed ahead. means I need to go another way. I need to find another road. That's kind of in alignment with detour. And what about this final one? Dead end. Do you ever feel like your life is at a dead end? You're stuck. You're going nowhere. And some people are not wise enough to figure it out and say, hey, you know what? I've landed in the wrong spot. So the best thing I can do is reverse course. Don't just sit there at the dead end. Don't just sit there and say, well, it's over for me. I'm done. No. That's not the thing to do. Swallow your pride, reverse course. Some people that may be traveling with you may laugh at you because you wound up on a dead end street. It's not so bad finding yourself on a dead end street, but it's horrible for you to get there and just stay there. Nothing could be worse. Listen, if you're not careful while cruising along, you're going to wind up losing in more ways than one. Life is not a game, and you don't necessarily get do-overs. As you're cruising along, and you know, every now and then it's good to feel like you can cruise for a little bit, but don't stay in cruise mode. You stay in cruise mode, there's so much you're going to miss out on. You may lull yourself to sleep. You may become bored with life. And so before you go through your whole life taking life for granted, turn off your cruise control. And once again, take control of your life. Take control of your destiny. Stop leaving your destiny to chance. And you take charge. Take charge. Listen, you might say, I don't know how. But if you make the effort, I guarantee you, you'll figure it out. You will figure it out. Decide where you want to go, decide how you want to get there, and then be very intentional about going about it. You only got one life to live. You might as well live it to the best of your ability. You might as well be the one in charge and in control of your life. Now, this is not to the exclusion of God or his divine purposes for your life. I think I want to make that perfectly clear. But what I am suggesting is that you not allow other things or other people to cause you to miss out on what God has already divinely appointed for you. And the way you do that is that, again, you conclude what it is that God has for you, his purpose for your life, the destiny he set for your life. And then you take the wheel, take control, take charge by the aid of the Holy Spirit. Again, this is not a preaching platform, but I got to tell y'all, I live by these principles, these biblical principles, and they work for me. By the aid of the Holy Spirit, allow him to lead you and guide you into your best life. That's all I have for today. I think it's been a wonderful start. Take the wheel. Keep moving towards your destiny. The best is yet to come. Look to see you tonight over on Canaan's YouTube channel for our TNT Bible study. I hope you'll join us. And again, I hope you'll share this link with somebody else. All right. Until tomorrow, my desire is that you have a blessed, wonderful, and even prosperous rest of your day. God bless.